I saw a sad story yesterday on TV. An American pedophile opened a home in Kenya for needy children. He assaulted many girls. 3 children died mysteriously. We have a children's department to protect young children. We pay taxes so that the government can run these departments. But where is the value for our money? I saw a sad tweet today from Boniface Mwangi. An insurance company had failed to pay for his medical procedure. He's protesting on Twitter. Why? Don't we have an insurance regulatory authority? Don't we have an insurance tribunal in Kenya? Aren't you paying the people who run these institutions? But where is the value for our money? What story will I see tomorrow? What tweet will I read tomorrow? Will it be your story? Or perhaps will you read my story? An all too far common Kenyan story. No value for our money. Welcome to Nahashon Kimemia Live. Analysis of the Auditor General's reports on the financial statements of the national government. It's an analysis of the IEA analysis. Thank you to everyone who suggests topics for my videos. I appreciate it. Suggest a topic, comment below, send me an inbox. Thank you to my 1,212 subscribers. Please subscribe to my channel and share these videos. Do not hide a light where there is darkness. You can ask questions during the live show. Please ask me a question in the comment sections. So if you want to fight terrorism, you follow the money. Why? Unlike other stories, money has no religion. Unlike other stories, money does not lie. Unlike other stories, money will always leave a trail. You will find those who conspire to harm others or to defraud the state. Remember Al Capone. He could always hide his crimes. Witnesses would disappear. Evidence would move away from the evidence room and never be seen again. But the IRA followed the money. And this is what the authorities in America relied on to put Al Capone behind bars. Because the money has no religion, it has no nationality, it does not lie, and it will always leave a trail. If you want to know what is the problem with Kenya, follow the money. If you want to change Kenya, follow the money. And that is what the IEA is trying to do. This is part 1. Government expenditure and delivery. Government plans for expenditure stood at 2.29 trillion in the 2017-2018 financial year. The government was aiming for 1.7 shillings trillion in revenue collection. But then it would have an overall deficit of 524 billion. So it's planning to spend. And this is information from the developmentinitiatives.org. Who was it collecting this revenue from? Who bears the ultimate responsibility for financing this deficit? What will happen to you if you refuse to pay taxes? If you refuse to play ball? What will happen to the future generation if they do not honor these debts? To China, to France, to the IMF, what will happen to them if they cannot honor these debts? Imagine a parent who binds his children in chains. Would you stand for it? Why do you stand for this government? Because it's binding us in chains and binding our children in chains. But they say that they need to spend this money for our benefit. That's why they need to do it. Government spending as a percentage of GDP, right? In 1965/66, that's the financial year, was 18.7%. And guess what the GDP growth rate was? 11.1%. Government spending 1971 to 1972 financial year was 25%. And guess what the GDP growth rate was? 14.3%. And then government spending went to 31.3% in 1981-1982. Guess what the GDP growth rate was? 0.5%. So during the year of the highest government spending as a percentage of the GDP, our growth rate was nearly negative. So when they say that they're spending for our benefit, does spending translate into money in your pocket? Into money in my pocket? So this was research by Charles Ben Nyamogo. He did the stats from 1964 to 1987. He was doing his masters. Kenya government spending is among the highest in sub-Saharan Africa, according to the Institute of Economic Affairs. And that is when you compare it to the overall income of its citizens. Take Kenya, take the citizens, what they earn as income. Take Uganda, take what they spend as a government, and take what they earn as citizens. So anyway, this one was information from the Heritage Foundation 2019 Index Economic Freedom, the Index of Economic Freedom. So as you can see, the IEA is right, such that when you compare our government spending as per our income, our GDP, at Kenya it's 27.2%, Uganda it's 19.4%, and Tanzania it's 18%. So Kenya were really way up there. So the Institute of Economic Affairs, it examined this public spending in 4 ministries: the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Devolution, and the Ministry of Agriculture. These ministries were among the most highly funded ministries in the government. So if that is true, then the government is prioritizing health, it is prioritizing education, it is prioritizing agriculture, and it is prioritizing a devolution. Then healthcare should be affordable, education should be top-notch, and no one should be hungry. But what is happening in Turkana? Why was Akode there? How long before they need food again? But it is true. The government is spending a lot of its income on these 4 sectors. In fact, it's 38% of the total expenditure for MDAs. MDA stands for ministries, the departments and agencies in ministries, right? That's 38% of the total expenditure for these departments and any agencies in our ministries. This expenditure is on payment for items that are necessary in the delivery of public services. For example, biometric kits for voter registration, workers to register voters, television ads for civic education are mostly using when it comes to voter registration. Is this expenditure worthwhile? If you take this as an example, effectiveness in expenditure isn't evident in the quality of public services rendered by government, according to the Institute of Economic Affairs. And I wanted to give my own example, not the one given by Institute of Economic Affairs, and the political ones are my own example. Saffron Mofo supplied IEBC with 3.8 billion KIMS kits to improve the credibility of our elections. But then there was maandamano after the elections, despite advanced systems in the elections. Why spend billions in biometric kits if they didn't improve the credibility of the elections? So the Institute of Economic Affairs, it says there are significant constraints to proper service delivery. These constraints are not primarily about the shortage of resources, according to the IEA. So it's not resources that's the problem, but then we're having constraints in service delivery. And I wanted to give again my own example. Galana Kulalu, 7.4 billion shillings project. What did it deliver? Yet we have 1.1 million people facing starvation. So let us be clear about government services. I argue that government is a service by virtue of its existence. And my starting point for this argument, we have certain inalienable rights. Among these, the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to the pursuit of happiness. And I'm using the American Constitution. And it goes on further to say that government is instituted to protect these rights. Anytime you think about government, you should think about how it is protecting your rights. For example, is it protecting you from danger, from mortal danger? Is it protecting your identity? Is it giving you a voice in society? Was it protecting the children from pedophiles? Government can protect you in many ways, give you protection. And one of those ways is by giving you security, by making sure the investigative agencies are there, the prosecution agencies are there, and the response units are there to any case of emergency or any case that requires their intervention. It can give you a birth certificate, a death certificate. That's identity. An ID number and voting. And what it does, it protects your identity. It does not give you your identity. That exists whether government exists or not. Always remember that government is a means to an end and not an end in itself. A means is a noun, so government is a noun. It's an entity. A means is a noun that refers to an action or a system by which a certain result is achieved. A method, that's another way of defining a means. An action, for example, if you pay for an electrician to work on faulty wiring. A system, for example, if you can use different transport systems to get to your destination. A method, for example, you can buy goods using different methods. Example, you can buy them at an online store or at the physical store. Why would an electrician be at your house if he isn't there to fix your faulty wiring? What is the use of a transport system if you have no destination or plans to travel? What is the use of different shopping methods if there are no goods to buy? What is the use of an insurance regulatory authority if Boniface Mwangi has to rant on Twitter? What is the use of an insurance tribunal if it can't rein in on rogue insurance companies? Why are we spending so much money on so many things that are not fulfilling their intended purpose? Always remember that the government acts at all times, so examine its acts. Always remember that the government is a system. Is that system working for you? Always remember that the government is a method of governing. Is it time to change that method? What am I saying? I am simply saying that government itself is a service. It has to provide services that offer us value for our money. Despite popular opinion, government cannot exist unless it provides a service. For example, why do they campaign saying that we'll bring this, we'll do this? Because they know they cannot get there unless they deliver something. So they cheat that they will deliver something. And then they justify maintaining that power, saying, we do this, we do that. No one can be your landlord unless he is providing a house for you. He is a landlord by virtue of providing a house. Can you ask me for rent when I do not live in your house? The house is the critical factor, not what documents I have or do not have. That is the most important factor. You can be my landlord even if I do not have documents, even if I do not have an ID, even if I do not have a Huduma number. The government must provide services because it is in essence a service. You cannot be my landlord unless you're providing a house for me, and you cannot dictate things to me unless you are providing a service. You cannot even ask, leave alone dictate. No one forces you to be my landlord, and no one forces the government to exist. The problem with Kenyans is that we think that you cannot do without the government. We take it as an end in itself instead of it being a means to an end. So the Leviathan, the monster, it grows and it grows as big as it wants to be. It can oppress us as much as it wants to oppress us, because we already have this idea in our mind that it must exist and it does not have to provide services. Without a public service, there is no need for a government. Without improvement in public service, there is no justification for taxation, leave alone increased taxation. There is no justification for increased loyalty to a government when there is no service. Can you be a loyal customer to an incompetent electrician? He will kill you. And what do you think the government will do? And so that is why it is very important, one, follow the money, right? Because it will lead you to the conspirators. And then demand value for that money, because that entity, that government, does not have to exist unless it provides a service. So if it's taking money and it's not providing a service, then the system, the method, and the way in which it acts, it must change. Accountability in government is not a favor. We elected people to keep the Leviathan, the monster, in check. We elect them to represent us in the Senate and in the National Assembly. They are to perform three key functions in regards to this. And this is what the Institute of Economic Affairs says. The authorization of taxes. That's the Senate and the National Assembly, Parliament, right? So that we're not overtaxed. But why are we overtaxed if there are people who are there who are supposed to check on the level of taxation? The Parliament is also supposed to give the go-ahead on expenditure or to stop it. So why do we have spending on projects that are failing? Parliament is supposed to see the expenditure that they approve. If you approved of something, go and oversee it. Are they doing that? There are various tools at their disposal to exercise their authority on our behalf. There's the Public Audit Act, the Public Finance Management Act, and the Constitution. And these are tools that I got from the IEA book. Are they using these tools effectively? The parliamentarians. Under Article 248, Part 3 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, according to the IEA, we have the Office of the Auditor General, and it's an independent office. And its work is to carry out an audit for public entities both at the national level and at the country level. This Office of the Auditor General. According to Section 30 of the Public Audit Act, IEA, audited reports by the Auditor General should be submitted to the substantive head. In this case, the IEA was looking at ministries, so the substantive head would be the cabinet secretaries. And those secretaries should lay the report before the National Assembly, regardless of the opinion in those reports. So what if the minister fails to lay a report before the National Assembly as required? Remember, the Auditor General who prepares these reports, he may have different opinions of the audited accounts. They may vary. One of the opinions is that it might be unqualified or clean. In other words, it's okay, the statements are presented fairly. In terms of qualification, it's like saying I went to the market, but you see that but is the qualification. So if it's unqualified, then we already know your first statement is a fair one. It's a true representation of where we are going. There was no addition to that statement. In the same way, when it comes to accounts, from what I gather, unqualified statements, otherwise known as clean statements, they are a true representation of the state of that ministry in this case, right? The Auditor General can also present, give his opinion as qualified, a qualified opinion. In this case, the statements are pretty fair. We have an idea of what's going on, right? But there is this issue and that issue and that issue, and we really need to look at that. So you see, there's a qualification to it. So that's why they call it a qualified opinion. And that's a bad thing. An adverse opinion is kind of like the worst thing. In this case, unreliable financial statements. There is something seriously wrong over there. We can't even rely on those statements that you're bringing to us. A disclaimer, it means that you cannot express an opinion on the matter because perhaps you did not have enough scope to investigate it, or there are certain uncertainties that you're not sure about. So it's kind of like a lukewarm opinion. And so when the cabinet secretaries might have reservations about presenting these reports to Parliament, so they might just say, I won't do it because you gave me an adverse opinion, you gave me a disclaimer opinion, or you gave me a qualified opinion, and what I wanted was unqualified. I did not want a but in the audit of my ministry. So if the minister fails, the Auditor General will submit a report copy to the National Assembly Speaker. So eventually an audit report will get to our representatives one way or the other, and in theory they will fight for our interest once they see it. And that's theory. It sounds like a foolproof system, doesn't it? But the IEA reports apparent indifference by key oversight institutions. Example, the National Assembly exists. Remember, the National Assembly was the primary institution within the structures of government to oversee government expenditure in terms of taxation, in terms of giving the go-ahead or stopping expenditure, or in terms of overseeing. These were the go-to guys. These are the ones we rely on. And these are the ones who are indifferent to what is happening. And it has consequences because there is a slowdown in the examination of audit findings. Because the Auditor General is coming with the reports, but nobody is examining them seriously. They just look at the headlines in the newspapers, and after all that goes away, they stop talking about it and they go back underground. Our representatives. So there's a slow pace in the prosecution of adversely mentioned cases. In other words, people are not following the money, but yet they are claiming that they're giving services to justify their existence in certain positions. So anyway, you can see that we have mechanisms in government, right? And we can see that those mechanisms are not working. Why? Because of the indifference of the overseers, of our representatives, of those who are to fight on our behalf. And this is why Plato said, good people do not need laws to tell them to act responsibly, but bad people will always find a way around the laws. And these guys have found a way around the laws. Laxity. So anyway, consequently, because of what our parliamentarians are doing, the fight against corruption remains a mirage. There are no tangible reports. Scandal here, scandal there, but at the end of the day, no one is in jail. The recovery of public assets compared to the ones that are lost, it's simply incomparable. So what will happen if this situation persists? Will we have a country in the next few years? Will we have put the next generation in chains? So let's look at a specific ministry. Issues raised in the Ministry of Health. The IEA analyzed data for the Ministry of Health for 3 years, financial years, 2013-2014, 2014-2015, 2015-2016. And the data came from the Auditor General's report. The expenditure in 2013-2014, it was 27.8 billion Kenyan shillings. And there were a total of 25 audit issues or queries that were raised. Number 1, what happened to this? Number 2, what happened to this? Number 3, what happened to this? Number 4, what happened to this? Until we get to 25. The questions raised, these queries, they involved transactions. The total amounts for these 25 queries, 17.5 billion. That's 63% of the expenditure. So more than half of the expenditure for this ministry, the Ministry of Health, was under query. And so what did the Auditor General do? He gave an adverse opinion. These statements are not clear. They are unreliable. So that's what he said. But then these are 25 queries, right? And each query had its different amounts. The maximum value was 7 billion in one query, just 7 billion. That's enough for Galanu Kulalu, right? That's a third of what we had for the dams. And that is just one ministry. So imagine what is happening in all the other ministries. And yes, I wanted to give these cases where it's a lot of money. These are usually for the big guys who are rarely named by the media unless their names are obvious. And amongst those 25 queries, there was a value of 20,000 bob. That was the query that had the minimal value. And these are the guys who become scapegoats, where the EACC, it makes arrests and then it makes prosecutions and then it has statistics for us. 50 people were arrested for corruption, prosecuted, done all of these things. But the 7 billion guys, they're still free. But the 20,000 guy, yeah, he won't go anywhere. So I just wanted to, again, this one was figures released by the IEA. I just wanted to give those examples. So let's go to another one. The queries amount that I've mentioned, the billions, the thousands, they do not necessarily mean that the money was lost. It just means that a significant number of transactions were being done without laid down procedures. If you are to use a common term in the streets or in the language, yes, in street language, we would say procedures ni wewe, watu wajibambe, because that's what they're doing. Because they know that this and this is the accounting standard, this and this is the accounting practice, but they just won't do it. And so there's a risk of potential financial loss, and we actually lose a lot of money, right? And even as we lose money, we still increase the amounts that we give to these ministries. Because from what I got from this analysis by the IEA, expenditure in 2014 to 2015, it rose from 27.8 billion in the previous year, the one that I was talking about, to 38.3 billion. That's more than 10 billion. Even though the Auditor General gave an adverse report, he said that those statements are unreliable. There's a serious problem in accounting in that ministry. But still, we increased it by 10 billion. Expenditure in 2015-2016, it rose from 38.3 to 42.3 billion. Even though that previous year, there was a qualified opinion. Right? And a qualified opinion is not a good one because it's the opinion that includes a but. It seems okay, but there is this and this and that. There is no unqualified opinion in the Ministry of Health during this time period. So it was alarming that rising expenditures in the same ministries that have statements with adverse opinions. That was alarming for the IEA, and I think it's alarming for me also. Donor-funded projects mostly receive unqualified or disclaimer opinions. In other words, yes, it's a fair account of what is happening in those projects, or we don't have enough information to determine what is happening, right? But it's never a but in the statement. A considerable 10 donor-funded projects obtained an unqualified opinion between 2014 and 2015. During the same time, government had 18 audit queries and no unqualified opinion. And in terms of government, I'm talking about the Ministry of Health. And these donor-funded projects were under the Ministry of Health. One ministry. Another one has 10 unqualified opinions when it comes to donor-funded projects. Another one has 18 queries and no unqualified opinion. And yeah. So, for example, there's a Global Malaria Fund. It went from unqualified to unqualified and then to qualified. This is donor-funded, right? So donor-funded, it's not all rosy. There are problems that might occur. And then there's the health sector support project. It went from unqualified to qualified and qualified. So even them, there can be a deterioration in terms of the management of the accounting over there. But it has not reached to the point of an adverse opinion. The Gavi Health System Strengthening Project had a disclaimer for the 3 years. So again, it's not that donor-funded projects have a rosy platform. It's just that they don't have adverse opinions and they don't have as many problems as the government has. Yet they can be under the same entity and overseen by more or less the same accounting officers. There is one legal framework for accounting practices in Kenya. Why are there varying reports between government and donor-funded reports? Simple. It depends on the effort and the capability of the accounting officers. So what are the main problems and perhaps the solutions? According to the IEA, improper keeping of accounts, that's a big problem. The lack of supporting documents, that's a big problem. The failure to reconcile books, that's a big problem. Again, if you note, these problems are not IT related, right? They're mostly human related. And then another problem is accountability, as you have seen, because no one is holding them accountable, even our representatives. So what can we do? The IEA says that we can train the public to read such reports, to ask questions that our representatives will not ask. It says that we have a duty to create awareness of the losses and the opportunity cost of those losses. Like if there's a project, Othaya Phase 2, I think it's a hospital project that collapsed in Nyeri, but Nyeri at the same time is facing malaria issues. So in terms of that collapsed project, that money could have moved into solving malaria in those areas. So that's the opportunity cost. And the idea is to, why we create this awareness, why we should have this opportunity cost, an idea of this opportunity cost, is so that we can be angry enough. Because anger, if directed properly, is very useful. And then there was enhanced policy formulations that promote national values and integrity. This one I don't agree with because what I'm saying is that good people don't need laws to act responsibly, but bad people always go around the laws. So we don't need any more policies, we don't need any more laws. It's a human problem. People need to start acting, and if they will not act, then give us the information, as these guys are trying to do. So anyway, the IEA also says there's capacity assessments to be carried out before. There should be capacity assessments to be carried out before allocation of public funds to ministries, which is very important. Why are you giving additional cash to a ministry that has an adverse opinion from the Auditor General of Kenya? It's so bad over there, but then you're increasing that cash by more than 10 billion. Are you trying to help those guys still? And then the IEA also says you should provide incentives in form of rewards for the best performance. And then provide disincentives such as budget cuts for poor performers. Incentives might work, but monetary incentives might not work. Because again, these guys steal because they desire monetary benefit, right? So even the monetary incentive that you can give, it may not be worth all the billions or millions that they can steal. So the incentive has to be some kind of new way of thinking, some kind of new way of seeing Kenya, a new way of patriotism. And as we said, government is a system, an act, and a method. Perhaps what is necessary is a change in the actions of government, in the system of government, and the method of governing. And that might be an incentive for people to check the government and for people in the government to act properly. Yes, no one but ourselves can free our mind. We cannot wait for other people. Our own representatives are not working for us. The pedophiles are here, yet we have a children's department. We do not get value for our money. If you go to them, they say that they don't have enough resources. So where is that money going to? As we follow the money, we eliminate the excuses and we find the culprits. The insurance companies are already here and they will not pay for our healthcare. For those who benefit from insurance, right? Even then, the companies will not pay for them. Yet we have bodies that are supposed to take care of that. We are not receiving value for our money from those bodies, and you need to follow them. You got these funds. What are you doing with it? Which company did you rein in? What laws did you propose? How many people have you prosecuted for making the poor people suffer? We need services today, or we don't need a government, because government is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. It exists as a service provider. It does not exist of its own merit. All we want is a better life, nothing more, nothing less. A new way of thinking is the best way of doing things. Thank you for watching. Please let me know what you think. Leave your comments in the comment section below the video. Thank you to all my 1,212 subscribers. Please subscribe to my channel and share these videos. Do not hide a light where there is darkness. And pray for me that I may not flee for fear of the wolves.